Hello, everybody. Welcome to a Comic Source Comic Book Keepers collaboration. First one ever. Joining us from Comic Book Keepers is Lance. Now, Lance is somebody that I've run into at San Diego Comic Con and other shows for years. You know, we often end up in the same kind of press rooms and whatnot. And he's just a super nice guy. And him and I have talked about collaborating for years. We're finally making it happen here. And we thought, you know, it would be a lot of fun would be to just do a list of, best indie comics of all time. Now, this is our list as of today. Now, you talk to us tomorrow, and it could completely change because we forgot this or we read that or whatever. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. We're going to do like a top 10 in no particular order. I actually have like 18 on my list because I don't know if there's going to be crossover or whatever, and I may give honorable mentions to some of the others. But it's just going to be a lot of fun and pretty casual and whatever. And the last thing I say before I'll throw it over to Lance to let him give an intro, is that we decided that we didn't want to let each other know what our top tens were or our, list. So, and I'm recording this I'm doing the graphics on my end. So I don't know what Lance's are, and I don't have graphics for his, but as he calls them out, I'm going to go and grab graphics and throw them on the screen. So just bear with us if it takes a little longer to show what his choices are. But all that being said, hey, Lance, thanks for taking the time. Really great to have you on the show finally. Let everybody know what you guys do over there at Comic Book Keepers.
Yeah, thanks, Jace. I'm excited to be here. When you gave us the daunting task of deciding top 10 indie comics of all time, it was difficult. So I think my list might just be more of my top 10 that I love. There are plenty of indie comics I feel like I still haven't read, but based on the graphic that I can see on the screen right now, we're going to have some overlap in ours. But yes, like Jace mentioned, I am Lance, one of the co-hosts of the Comic Book Keepers podcast. We are another one of those nerdy shows that popped up because of the pandemic, and we did not think we would be going as long as we have been, but we never wanted to stop. We tend to do character deep dives. Because the whole point of our show was we wanted to learn more about comics. We wanted to learn more about comic book characters. So the norm for us is we select a character and then go into their comic book history, their origin, the creators behind them, kind of getting background in all of those areas, as well as adding in like fun little what if segments and kind of taking the story in our own directions. But then we also, like Jace mentioned, we go to cons, we'll do coverage, we'll do interviews, and we like to mix up our format every once in a while. But that's usually the gist of our show.
Great. Now, I'll put a link to the Comic Book Keepers link tree in the show notes, everybody. They have a Patreon. They obviously have the podcast. They have some other places that you can find them, follow them on social media, that sort of stuff. So I'll just put the link tree in the show notes. So, whatever way you want to support them or check them out, definitely go and do that. So, all right, since you're the guest, Lance, I'm going to let you kick it off with the first choice. I'm ready to find the cover. So fire away.
One of my favorite comics of all time, and listeners of our show will know this, I am a massive fan of Invincible. Invincible was created by Robert Kirkman and Cory Walker, and then many people will throw Ryan Ottley into the mix because Ryan Ottley was the artist that came on issue 11. I think he started doing covers on issue 8, but then soon started taking over full duties just because it became too much for Cory Walker to keep up with everything, which is a reason why initially this book started out relatively slow because they weren't able to release issues monthly. And if you know anything about Invincible, there is a massive switch in the narrative. Things are turned on their heads in issue 11, and you definitely want to get to that point in the story. I really regret not getting into the series sooner because I had a college roommate at the time that kept trying to give me Invincible, and I was like, it's another superhero book. It looks very similar. Oh man, I made a massive mistake with not jumping on Invincible sooner.
Yeah, so right off the bat, we do have overlap. This one's in my list as well. No surprise. And interesting, so, I came to it much later. I think it was around issue 70 when I started picking it up. I'm kind of same way, because those early issues, the low print run, just a regular early issue, not even a key, is like $300. So this is my biggest comic purchase of all time. I do have a number one.
I'm jealous.
Unslabbed, which I paid at the time. I paid over $1,000 for, and
yeah.
Right at in 2021, 2022, late 2021, 2022, and I thought, well, actually I take that back. It was May 2022 when I bought it, and then it dropped, right? Like the bubble burst and it dropped, and I was like, oh man, maybe I overpaid or whatever. Now it's like gone up past that, or whatever. And and I figured it would. It's one of those evergreen books or what have you that will always be awesome. And it is. I'm glad you mentioned Cory Walker. I did list him because he is a co-creator. He's done a lot of work on the animated show as well. The thing that's so interesting is his style is very similar to Otley. And yet Otley's much faster, and that's no knock on Walker, one way or the other. I mean, different people work at different speeds or whatever. But whether it's Cory Walker developing the initial look for the characters, or Ryan Otley giving us the over-the-top action, blood, guts, whatever. I mean, Invincible is just it holds a special place, and I'm glad a lot of people are discovering it because of the Amazon show. So it's definitely worthy being on the list for sure.
I had the opportunity back in 2015 at a convention to buy. I had the potential to buy a page, but I hadn't started reading Invincible yet. And my buddy, who was running a booth at a con, was the one that was trying to get me to read it. And he went over to Otley's booth and bought an original page, and he only paid $200.
Oh my god!
And that's 2015.
Yeah.
If I had read the book at that point, I 100% would have purchased a page.
Yeah.
But I missed out big time. But I did jump on buying Invincible books before they skyrocketed to crazy levels. And I was able to complete the entire run, issue 2 through 144, with some of the variants in between. I never had a first print of issue 1. But I still have all the keys, but I sold off all the non-keys that basically paid for my last 2 conventions for everything.
Wow, it's crazy. Yeah, I think I'm complete from like 50 up or so, and obviously I have a number 1, but I don't know that I'll ever. I mean, again, it's just for like issue 4, not even key. It's like $300. It's like, do I really want to spend that? And the other thing is that so many have been reprinted. I mean, Kirkman has reprinted this stuff in collections, 6 different ways from Sunday. I have a bunch of other number 1s, like a red foil number 1, and it's been reprinted so many times. So yeah, it's just like, man, do you really want to go and spend the money, or should I be buying books that don't already own in one form or another? So. All right, what am I going to call out first here? Oh, you know what? I'm going to call out. I'm going to save probably again. This is in no particular order, but when we start talking about, maybe some of them I might save for a little later, just because it's so kind of special. So I'm going to call out Radiant Black from Kyle Higgins. Joe Clark is now co-writing it with him. Marcela Costo was the original artist. But they've done a ton of other. There you go. Yeah, they've done it. Yeah, they have a bunch of other creators that have worked on the book in terms of art and what have you. So, but the reason I'll call this out is just for the fact that it's easy to jump on, and there's a great balance of action and character. And Kyle talked about from the beginning, when he started this, coming off of his Power Rangers run, wanting to take big swings. And this book did take big swings. I mean, you want to talk about switching up the narrative, which Lance mentioned with issue 11 of Invincible. Issue 4 of this, the guy that had the powers gets killed. You're like, I mean, we think he's killed. Ends up he's just in a coma for a matter of months. But it was like, wait, what? You just killed off the main character in issue 4? We thought we were going to run this for a long time or whatever, and then it led to parallel timelines. And this book is just full of energy, full of action, full of big swings. But Kyle never loses sight of grounding it with great character moments. So, and we've had great art throughout, a bunch of cool variants. I actually have a Radiant Black long sleeve shirt that looks exactly like the one that the Radiant Black character is wearing right there. That's really cool that I wear at shows sometimes. So yeah, if you're looking to get into something, and none of these issues, I mean, there are some ratio variants that are kind of expensive, I mean, again, there's a bunch of different versions of one, so I think you can still even find number 1 pretty affordably.
Absolutely.
But this is a series. I think it's up to like 35, 36 ish right now. You could pick this up, the entire run, relatively inexpensively in single issues or trades for sure. The trades are still in print, so it sounds like you obviously have read it. You're showing the trade off, Lance. So give us your thoughts on Radiant Black.
Yeah, Radiant Black is such an easy book to champion because of the creators behind it. Like Kyle Higgins is super nice. I've had so for listeners, if you don't know a little bit more about Radiant Black, I'll slow myself down a little bit more. There is this whole connective universe. So there's like Radiant Black, there's Radiant Pink, there's Rogue Sun, you have Dead Lucky. There's all these different stories and different heroes that fall within the same universe. And it's all these creators that became friends while they were working on Power Rangers together. And this is very much is one of those tokusatsu, transformation henshin comic books. If you are a fan of those, you will absolutely love this, but this is very modernized. Takes huge swings like Jace mentioned. There is a point in the comic where there is a split into two separate timelines, and you get to find out what two different people do with the powers of Radiant Black. It's really, really interesting. There's a lot of cool multimedia things that the collaborative have done together. There's an animated special, like it's a short, but Will Friedle voices the main character. Like there's so many cool things that they're doing. But I've actually had Kyle Higgins on the show. I've had Ryan Parrott on, who writes Rogue Sun. I've had Melissa Flores on that writes Dead Lucky. All of these creators, they're easy to champion because they're all very, very nice. So it just is an added bonus that the storylines are really engaging and interesting. I'm a big fan of the directions they have taken these stories. I do need to catch up. There's also Inferno Girl Red. We'll throw that out there too, but definitely a universe that needs to be explored. And then Matt Groom is the writer of Inferno Girl Red. I want to shout out all those creators.
Yeah, so if you picked up Immortal Legend Batman last week and loved it, yeah, you're going to love this because those are the same creators. Erica Durso is the artist on Inferno Girl Red. So yeah, definitely pick it up. And the other thing is, if you're one of those people who's like, I'm not sure if I'm really even into comics at all. First of all, I'm not sure why you're watching this. Maybe you stumbled across it. But the reason I bring it up is because Will Friedle is going to be returning in an audiobook to do kind of a volume of the first few issues of Radiant Black. It should be coming out next year. And it's an all-star cast of people that are going to be voicing Radiant Black. So looking forward to that. All right, what do you have up next, Lance?
I kind of want to throw a curveball in the mix. I think this is going to be a book that not a lot of people are going to have on their list, and I don't know if a lot of people have going to have read it, especially if you're like more of a modern reader. But RoboCop versus Terminator by Frank Miller and Walter Simonson. This book came out in 1992. It is a 4-issue little mini series. There was a sequel series, but I want to specifically only talk about these first 4 issues. I think it is one of the greatest depictions of time travel in any medium. End sentence, period. I think it is so well written by Miller. Truly engaging. I'm like a passive fan of RoboCop and Terminator. Neither of them were like blew my mind growing up. Obviously, like Terminator 2 is one of the most essential movies ever. It's incredible. But it's not a franchise where I'm like, I need to consume every piece of media of this franchise. But RoboCop versus Terminator, when you put those two together, the connections that Miller creates between the two, and I'm not going to spoil anything, the connections he creates between those two properties is seamless and brilliant. The art by Walter Simonson, one of the greatest comic book artists to have ever picked up a pen, is just firing on all cylinders in this book. You get a ton of action, but you get a lot of in-depth character development. The questions that the narrative makes you feel and contemplate throughout it when it comes to what does sacrifice look like? What is it to be human? Can you have humanity if you've lost humanity? There's so many interesting narrative elements, and it constantly plays on the time travel component. When you think the story is wrapping up, you're like, wait, this is issue 1. How is this happening? It throws another curveball into the wrench. It is just one of the most well-written comics I have ever read. I actually read it relatively recently, and it blew my mind, and it has not left the forefront of my mind since. Wow, great pick. I have never read it, but just do yourself a favor. I've heard great things about it, and the other thing is, like, it's not. I mean, these are two movie franchises, and
they seem like a natural crossover, but it's not something you necessarily would think about. And then, oh wait, it already has happened, and it makes for a great comic. I mean, Frank Miller's a legend. Simonson as well. So, yeah, really interesting pick. Yeah, I'm gonna have to track that down. Four issues, everybody, from Dark Horse. First issue came out in 1992. So.
Yeah, and I will say the trade is hard to come by. So if you find the trade, snatch it up. If you find the hardcover, you have been blessed by some type of god out there. Pick that thing up because it goes for I think 150 to $200.
Wow, definitely gonna have to try to track it down.
Yes.
All right, let's see. What am I gonna call out next? So many to choose from. I'm gonna call out one from a creator who I'm a huge fan of. Not just this book, but I have another one that I'll mention, and then he's currently doing some really great stuff with his collaborator Ryan Brown, as well as the Shrouded College stuff that he's doing with Will Sliney and Rochelle Rosenberg. So it's Charles Soule. It's Letter 44 is the book that I'm shouting out here. Art by Alberto Albuquerque, which Charles collaborated on one of the Shrouded College series with Alberto. As well, kind of, we just wanted to work with him again, and so brought him on to do that. So, Letter 44 postulates that. The whole. Let me talk about the title first of all. So, when a sitting president loses an election or is about to leave office, for whatever reason, they lost election or served 2 terms, whatever, and he's passing it off to the next. There's a tradition to write a letter, a handwritten letter for the next president, and leave it sitting on the desk. And the next president comes in, they listen, they read it, and they see what's happening, whatever. So this president, Reuben Blades, that you see on the cover here, when he gets the letter from the previous president, the president that's the 43rd president, and he takes office, the letter tells him that the U.S. government has spotted an extraterrestrial vehicle that's within the solar system, and they've been building this spacecraft in secret and launched it, and the astronauts are already on their way there to make first contact with these aliens, and it just gets crazier from there. But it's also political. But we get to know there's a lot of the issues where it flashes back. We get to know the people that are on the crew, the astronauts that are on the crew before they went. It's an international crew. And we get to know why they chose to go, because in their minds it's a one-way mission. So why would you take that on? Some of them are taking it on for personal reasons. They don't feel like there's anything left for them on Earth. Others, they just want to be the first one to make first contact, that sort of thing. So it's a very personal story for a lot of them in those spotlight issues. But then we have the overall political climate of the upheaval of the world. Now, keep in mind that this came out before things really went crazy. I mean, we're saying Letter 44, right? So the 44th president was Obama. And so this was all about, that time where things were starting to get divisive, but nowhere near as crazy as they are now. So it's interesting because in a way, Charles was a little prescient with some of the ideas that he has here with so much divisiveness. But it ends up, it's a science fiction story, obviously. We talk about aliens and spacecraft and extraterrestrials and what have you. But it's also a very human story in a lot of ways. And it gets wild and crazy. And they just, within the last couple of years, did a Kickstarter because they wanted to have, because this is from Oni Press, a smaller publisher. They wanted to have a really nice deluxe edition hardcover. And I regret that I didn't back it, because I was like, oh man, I have all the single issues. I have other collected editions already. Do I want to buy this for the 3rd time? And so I chose not to participate, and then I regretted it. Would like a nice hardcover of this on my shelf. But anyway, I just think it's a fantastic story. I'm a big fan of Charles. He's another guy I read everything he does because he's so talented. Have you read this, Lance?
No, I have not, but I'm definitely putting it on my list now. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I want to say 28 issues.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely worth your time, no doubt.
Yeah, I will definitely be picking it up. Charles Soule, 8 Billion Genies.
Yep.
There's a lot of solid books out there, so I definitely wanna read this one as well.
Yeah,
he sold me on it. Yeah,
Curse Words, 8 Billion Genies, and then Lucky Devils is the one that's coming out right now. Yeah, so this was 35 issues. 35 issues. So,
oh wow, nice.
Check it out, everybody. All right, what's up next for you?
My next one is, and I'm going to say just that I'm not going to. It's Usagi Yojimbo. I was going to do an intro, but just in case you didn't already have an image of Usagi, I'll say it now. Usagi Yojimbo, if you do not know, is created by Stan Sakai. It originally released in 1984. So this book is about Miyamoto Usagi, who is on a warrior's pilgrimage after becoming a Ronin. So his lord dies in battle, and so he is now this wandering Ronin. He'll take jobs every once in a while, but it is a series that has been going nonstop since 1984, and Stan Sakai has been on it from jump. He's never not worked on this book this entire time. It is an achievement that not many creators can say that they've worked on a creator-owned series as long as they have, while it being extremely popular as well. Many of you might recognize Usagi Yojimbo because there was a Ninja Turtle figure created for Usagi, because he has crossed over with the Ninja Turtles before. So Stan Sakai and like Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, they were kind of buddies, and they wanted to cross over their characters. But this series is absolutely astounding. It is really engaging with the art. It has a fantastic balance between very serious storylines and then also very funny, engaging, witty storylines. It walks that line so well. You develop real feelings for these characters. You hope things work out for them, and storylines just consistently circle back. So characters you have seen will come back again later, but it could be many issues until you see them again. It is just one of the pillars, I feel like, in the indie comic scene. And Stan Sakai is just like one of the nicest guys in the comic book community. The first time I met him, strangely enough, was in the elevator of WonderCon. I was planning on going and meeting him for the first time about, I think it was 3 years ago at WonderCon. And boom, opens the door. I get to have a conversation with him as we go down. We're just having a nice chat. We walk to the convention, towards the convention hall together. And then when I went up to his booth, because I was planning on going there that day anyway, so I saw him later on, and I had my TMNT Usagi crossover comic, and I paid to have like a little head sketch done, because you can pay a certain amount for a head sketch and then also pay even more, and he'll do like a head and a body. And I don't know if it was because we had that conversation earlier, but I go up to the booth and I say, "Hey, Stan, I paid just for a head sketch." And he looked at me and he just said, "Mm-hmm." And he kept drawing, and he drew me like the full torso remark on the book. And I will forever be a Stan Sakai fan, and Usagi Yojimbo will forever be one of my favorite comics ever.
You know, I've had multiple people tell me, because it's one I've never read. It's definitely a hole that I have.
So good.
I've had so many people tell me that I need to check it out, and one of these days I will for sure, because, yeah, I've heard nothing but good things. And, yeah, I can vouch for Stan being an absolutely incredible guy.
I strongly recommend, if you're going to dive into it, there is let me see, where's it on my bookshelf? There's like the Ultimate Collection. It's a hardcover. You can also get it in softback, but it is all of the books that came out before it jumped over to Dark Horse. So you can get all of it, because it was originally done by one publisher, and then it was done by Fantagraphics, and then it jumped over to Dark Horse. It's been at multiple publishers throughout the years, but you can snag this gorgeous collection all in one. It's 2 hardcovers or 2 thicker trade paperbacks.
Yeah, Fantagraphics, and then the picture that I had up was when it was at Mirage, and then, Dark Horse, and now currently at W. So, all right, this next one I debated on whether I was going to put it on the list or not. It's been a favorite for a really, really long time for me. But the reason it's called Clone, the reason that I debated whether or not to take it off is because it wasn't selling the best. It was optioned. So it came out from Robert Kirkman's Skybound company, and written by a guy. The first arc is written by a guy named David Schulner, who works more in the TV field. Like he did Emerald City at NBC a few years ago. Then there was that Ryan Eggold, I think it was called Providence or something like that, like a medical drama that was on for like 4 or 5 years. And he was a writer, creator, showrunner of that. Anyway, the first arc he wrote by himself, and then he brought on a couple of his collaborators he works with in TV named Aaron Ginsberg and Wade McIntyre, because this book has so much action and so much happens that he couldn't keep up on his own. He needed co-writers. Mm-hmm. And Juan Jose Rip, who's gone on to do a ton of stuff. He did stuff after this at Valiant, then Bad Idea. He's done stuff at DC. He's really detailed with his art. This is the first time I ever saw his work. But the reason that I debated on not putting this on was because it ends with it in issue 22 with a cliffhanger, and they've never brought it back. And so it's brutal. But the reason I put it on here is because this comic has the best cliffhangers of any comic that I've ever read in my life, like ever. It's not every issue, but it's almost every issue. Ends on this crazy cliffhanger where I would be reading them when it was coming out, and I'd turn the page. And, like in one instance, this cabin where a lot of the main characters have, they're using it as a hideout, it blows up. And I'm reading that, and I'm like, oh, please don't let this be the last page. And you turn, and sure enough, of course, it's the last page. You're like, no, I have to wait a whole month. Like, what's going on? And I've had a chance to meet David Schulner when this was coming out, and he was a super nice guy. Robert Kirkman threatened to sue me over this book, which is a whole nother story. But I put it on there because, again, this is the type of book that just shows you what is possible in comics. It wouldn't necessarily work in any other medium. And David Schulner was so super nice. And this was actually optioned. And I remember the first issue was going for like $60 at one point, right after it got optioned. And it was actually moving along in development. And the reason that it didn't is because they had that movie, that other show from the BBC, Orphan Black, that came out a little. They were pretty far along in development, then Orphan Black dropped, and they were like, wait, what? Because the whole idea of this clone is there's a guy on the main cover here who finds out that he's got like 100 different clones of himself. His dad was in the army, was an army scientist, ran this experiment or whatever, and so he doesn't know, like, are you the clone, are you the alpha, what have you? And that's where it, are you the original? That's where the threat came from Robert Kirkman to sue me. Because I love this so much. It was right around the time, like, issue like 10 or 12 had come out. And I was going to Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. I had a couple shirts made, one for myself and one for my son. And it just had the clone logo on the front. And then below that, it said, are you the original? Because the way that you would know is everybody had like a black light tattoo on their arm. And the original had like an infinity symbol, I think it was. And everybody else had a number. So anyway, I go to the Skybound panel. And I'm sitting there, and Sean Makowitz, the editor-in-chief at Skybound, is up there on the podium, and he points out me in the crowd, and he's like, yeah, so I saw this guy walking around earlier. He has those awesome clone shirts that we made. They look so great. He's like, and then I realized we didn't make any clone shirts. And Kirkman looks dead at me, and he goes, my lawyers will be in touch. And then he does one of these things where he shakes his head, but then he nods his head, then he shakes his head. I mean, he's so great. I mean, as you know, awesome. Yeah, we've interviewed him several times. So clearly he was joking. But it was just a lot of fun. So that'll always be a fond memory. That was kind of my first interaction. That was before I'd ever interviewed Kirkman or had a chance to meet him. I mean, I've interviewed a ton of times since then, but that was my first impression of him. So it was a lot of fun. But this book is awesome. I'm so sad it was never made into a series because, again, it's action-packed. The character moments are amazing. I wish it would come back. I used to bug David Schulner every few months about it coming back. I haven't bothered him about it in years. I mean, clearly he's probably moved on now, but I would love for it to come back because the story is awesome. And, it's not like anything happened where they couldn't come back and just pick up the pieces that are going on. But in the interest of full disclosure, I got to tell everybody, like, you're going to dive in, you're going to fall in love with it, and then you're going to get to issue 22 and go, wait, the story doesn't end? What happens next? Yeah, we don't know. But even with that, I still think it's worth reading because it is so absolutely amazing.
It's always hard when series that you love can't continue.
Yeah.
One book that I was contemplating putting on this list was Ghost Cage, and it wasn't even like it. So Ghost Cage is written by Nick Dragotta and illustrated by Caleb, or it's also illustrated by Nick Dragotta, but it's also like co-illustrated by Caleb Goldner. And Ghost Cage is a book that not many people have read. I won't go in depth to it, but it's basically like if you really like Absolute Batman, like Nick Dragotta is illustrating Absolute Batman. This is Nick Dragotta doing manga, but it is a wild premise. It is not on my top 10, but I contemplated putting it on my top 10. So there's a little bonus one for everyone. Please go read Ghost Cage. It's only 3 issues. I'm desperate for more, hoping that we get it. Let's see. So I'll go with this one for my next book. So League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. This is one of, oh, there you go.
There's
the
Ghost
graphic
Cage.
for
Yeah,
Ghost Cage.
I'll throw that up while I find League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. But go ahead,
so
Mike.
there's the bonus one. Oh man, Ghost Cage is so good. It is trippy. It is weird. It dives into a whole bunch of. There's like anthropomorphic versions of energy production, and there's like this silo that is breaking down, and this character that just has a giant eyeball is basically supposed to consume all these other versions of energy manufacturing and become like the new energy generator for the city. It's weird. It's wild. Strongly recommend. But my true next recommendation is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is just one of those books that made me fall in love with comics. O'Neill's art is so incredibly individualistic, captivating. You see so much detail on every single page. It is gorgeous. And do we really need to talk about how great of a writer Alan Moore is? Like the breadth of work that he has had throughout his entire career is stunning. But within this storyline, if you have not read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, essentially the main character of this series is Mina Murray. She has been recruited by the British intelligence to assemble this team of incredible people, which includes like Captain Nemo, Alan Quartermain, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and then the Invisible Man. And it's all of these characters that are supposed to come together to fight against a nemesis. And the story is wacky and wild, but it is it's also very adult, but it is so engaging throughout the entire thing. There are various volumes that dive into other time periods, but this initial one is set in like 1898. But you get to see the Nautilus, and it looks wild. It's so much fun. This book definitely was one of those that I couldn't put it down as soon as I picked it up. I love this book.
Yeah, and I'll say, having read it, I do agree that it's awesome. If you saw the movie and you thought the movie sucked, hey, we all did. Don't base it off that. The book is so much better than the book. And that movie never really had a chance. I love Sean Connery, but yeah, face it, he phoned it in. So yeah, definitely.
I had fun with that movie.
Yeah,
I remember.
I don't hate it the way most people do, but I get why people dislike it. Yeah.
I had a ton of fun going to theaters. I remember my mom took me out of school and took me to go see League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and I got out thinking that was super fun. I want to read the comic now, and that's the whole point of those movies. Yeah. Like, they should make you want to read the source material. But I'm a defender of that movie. I think it is so fun. I don't think it's the best acting or the best CGI, but I love how weird things get in it, which felt very comic booky to me.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so this next one is one a lot of people have probably heard of, and I have my reasons for having this on here, and I think it's deserving. I think it's deserving for several reasons. So I'm going with Spawn from, the Todd father, and you can complain about how bad the writing is early on. I've gone back, with our Spawn dailies and read it, and I was like, I enjoyed it at the time when it came out. And then I understood why people kind of poo-pooed it. But then rereading it, it stands up. It's not bad. Is it a little melodramatic and over the top at times? Yeah, it is. But guess what? It's a 90s comic. A lot of them are like that. And, Todd's the first one that will say, it's like, it took me years and years to hone my craft as an artist. And nobody gave me the grace to give me a little time to hone my craft as a writer. And he's right. So I only have him listed, him along with Greg Capullo is probably the most well-known other creator that has worked on this. Other than we got, a Frank Miller issue, we got an Alan Moore issue, we got a oh my god, who's the guy that did Dave Sim, the guy that did and then Neil Gaiman, obviously. But for the most part, Todd is the creative mind behind this, even though plenty of other writers have come on and other artists have been on the book over time. But I mean, the fact that we're approaching issue 370 and we've got a whole Spawn universe now that other things have spun out of. Like, yeah, if you want to go and read Spawn, guess what? You can, because we know that there were times where the print run got kind of low and the sales weren't worked great. But, I just had Todd on recently, last week, and he was talking about this, the perseverance to get through those tough times. Mm-hmm. And as a creator, especially if you're doing an independent, that's where you need to be because you're working for yourself. And if you can just get to 50 issues, then you can create a compendium, and that's passive income for you as a creator. And he's about to get 7, right? He's about to hit his 7th. And issue 400 is not that far away. Then he's going to have 8. He's got 8 compendiums. He already has 7 now. And again, passive income. But what it does for the reader is like, okay, you want to get caught up on Spawn? You don't have to go spend hundreds of dollars to buy those single issues. You can buy those compendiums, where you're getting 50 issues, and you're paying, about $1 an issue. So it is affordable. Or you can go and get them digitally. So it is possible. And the other part is, with the whole idea of the Spawn universe and how it's expanded with various miniseries over the years, and now they have multiple books that are coming out, whether it be Book of Nyx or Sam and Twitch or Curse of Shirley Johnson. Like, there's other flavors. Like, maybe you've read Spawn back in the day and you're like, I don't know, Spawn's not for me, but I love Law and Order. Go read Sam and Twitch. That's a great police procedural and what have you. So I'm not just basing this. I mean, yes, I've got an image of the original Spawn book, and I'm saying it's one of the best indies of all time. But really, I'm talking about the Spawn universe as a whole. You can take it as a whole. A lot of stuff can be traced back to Spawn. Gunslinger Spawn is his own character, but a different flavor. What Jimmy Palmiotti's doing on that book.
Medieval Spawn.
Yeah, Medieval Spawn. The Patrick Reynolds art and the Chad Hardin art on Gunslinger Spawn is amazing. Brett Booth is working on the regular Spawn issue. Like, there's just so many fantastic creators and so much to the Spawn universe now that you don't have to read it all. You can if you want, but there's a lot of different places that you can go and play around in the Spawn universe. And I just think that it gets overlooked. I mean, the fact that we're approaching issue 370 and people give Todd credit for that, and rightly they should, but it's like, it wouldn't be around if people weren't enjoying it. It never, it's one of those things. It's like, it never gets nominated for Eisners. People don't think of it as, award worthy or what have you. But when you talk about longevity, and maybe it wasn't, the best book on the stands every time that it dropped, every time it got released. But like, you want to talk about consistently, like maybe in the top 10 books for this long, no other title's done that. None. They just haven't. Especially not when it comes to indie books, because this is the longest running indie book ever. So I wanted to give a shout out. I think it's fun. I think people still get excited for it. Todd obviously has his fans. But when you talk about those early issues that people were a little bit critical of back in the day, first of all, I think it was a little professional jealousy. I think it was a little jealousy of how big the Image kind of, I don't want to say event, but just the Image, when Image happened, when that, people were buying millions of these books. Yeah, it was crazy.
The impetus, the creation.
Yeah, the momentum. So yeah, I think a lot of it was jealousy. And yeah, like Todd said, he self-admitted, wasn't the best writer at the time, but he knew to step back and hand it off to other people. And Kirkman does the same thing a lot of times, but Kirkman gets more credit for being a little more creative than Todd. I mean, Todd gets credit for being a savvy businessman, and he is, but I don't think he gets enough credit for what a great idea guy he is. And Spawn is a testament to that. So yeah, I had to shout it out.
Yeah, I don't think you have a complete comic book collection unless you have a Spawn #1.
Yeah,
in there. It is. Like, if you ever buy a collection, like if somebody has a storage unit and they have multiple long boxes, that there's a Spawn #1 coming out of those boxes. Everybody has this book, and I will say I love the art in those early issues. It is gorgeous. Like, Todd goes off. It was one of the first single issues I think I ever purchased. Honestly, it was probably within the first 100 books I ever bought. And I loved it. It was gorgeous. The writing in the early issues is rough. I remember getting through the first 5 and thinking, what is happening here? But then if you stick with it, like, the story gets far more interesting, engaging. But the beginning is just kind of getting you used to the characters that are going to be within the story. And then the story starts to take off more. But yeah, like, again, like, everybody in the scene if you don't include Spawn within the talks of the like greatest indie comics created. Like, it's not a true conversation. It has to be in the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know how many issues of number. I remember. I mean, I bought multiples of all. You know, I got multiples of Youngblood 1. It's still only worth $1. I got multiples of Wildcats, Savage Dragon. I think maybe I have 7 issues of Spawn number 1. I've never sold any of them.
Any newsstand ones?
I don't think so. I think they're all direct. But I don't know. I mean, back then, like when I was buying, there was no comic shop in my town, so almost all my older stuff is newsstand. My biggest regret, I never told you this, but I sold my whole Spider-Man collection I had from like issue 240 like up through the end of volume 1, and I sold it all. And I had like 6 copies of 361 newsstand. Oof. Yeah, I rebuilt. That's what I did during the pandemic. I rebuilt that. It cost me about $3,000 to rebuild my Spider-Man collection. But yeah, the one time I sold books and immediately regretted it. So anyway, enough of that. What's up next for your list?
Let's go with. I'm trying to make some variety here. I think I'll bring this one up. So, one of my favorite comics of all time, if not my favorite comic of all time, is Murder Falcon from Daniel Warren Johnson and Mike Spicer. This series, I believe there's only 8 issues within it. You can get an amazing deluxe hardcover edition of it, which also includes a bonus story that was released in Skybound X not too long ago. It is a great collected edition. Is the only way I would suggest people snag the series, unless you're going to get single issues. But Murder Falcon is one of the greatest narratives within storytelling that continues to subvert your expectations. You think the story is going in one direction, you think you know what's happening, and the rug is completely pulled out from underneath you. Within this narrative, there is Jake, who is struggling with having basically pushed everyone in his life away. He used to be in a band. He's no longer in a band. He had a relationship, and you'll find out what happened within that relationship. And it's really it's a story of trying to reconnect. It's a story of trying to mend bridges, but it's done in the most spectacular fashion you will ever expect. Based on the cover alone, if you see this here, so Jake is the one rocking a guitar, and you see this anthropomorphic falcon man with a metal arm doing just like devil horns in the sky while lightning is happening. This book is metal, but it is also going to rip your heart in two. It is done the story is written in a fantastical way where there are these creatures and monsters that are attacking the city, and Jake is getting home, and one of these monsters lunges towards him, and he has his broken guitar to the side, and all of a sudden this anthropomorphic falcon man named Murph comes through, and he tells him to reach for the guitar. He reaches for it, it mends itself, and then the Murph tells him to start playing, and Jake is really confused, but Murph is like, start playing! And he starts playing his guitar, and Murph gets stronger and stronger, and he's able to defeat this monster. And the narrative of the story is he basically has to put his band back together. There's also going to need to find the musical instruments that will then continue to increase the power of maybe some of their own people kind of help out and show up. But it really is just about it's truly a story about mending bridges, understanding your faults, and trying to make up for the things that you lack. And I could tell you other things that it is also about, but it would also be a big spoiler. This is the first comic that ever made me emotional. I believe it's issue 6 that made me tear up very strongly. My favorite double spread in this book, I have considered multiple times making it a tattoo sleeve on my arm. That is how much I love it. So if you are a fan of Daniel Warren Johnson, so if you've liked Do a Powerbomb, if you like the current run of Transformers, Extremity, all these other great titles, you definitely need to be checking out Murder Falcon, because I think it is a book that continuously is overlooked within the comic book community, and every single person that I have ever handed this book to has loved it. Every single one. And one last thing about it is this book. I love podcasting. It's very fun. I love comics. It's not my day job. I am an occupational therapist. I'm a hand therapist, and I cannot tell you how many times I have recommended this book to my patients because as soon as they find out I like comics, they ask me what should I read, and it's always this book. This is my recommendation.
Fantastic. Knowing Daniel Warren Johnson, that definitely sounds like his kind of book. He loves wrestling. He loves comics. He loves a lot of nerdy things that he comes across as like this. I don't want to say tough guy because he's very soft spoken, but you wouldn't realize he's and his stories are as emotional as they are. I really think he's kind of one of those. He's got the like the hard rockin' attitude, but like the soul of a poet, if you know what I mean. Like
100%.
He's such a fantastic guy. So. Not a huge surprise that it's even something called Murder Falcon. He brings emotion to it. So, all right. Next up, this is a book that I, much like yourself, people asking me what I should read. This is a book that I've recommended for years and years, and it's from The Return of Valiant, from writer Josh Dysart. A friend who's been on the show a ton of times. Carty Evans was the original artist on it. But they had a ton of other artists at various times: Bray Kitson, Lee Garbett, Miko Suyen, Perez. And so when Valiant came back, this was one of the linchpins, right, of the book. And what was so interesting about when they brought it back and they were building the Valiant universe again was how grounded it was. This wasn't, the kind of universe that you would see in Marvel or DC where people are used to having superpowers or what have you. They, Toyo Harada, the antagonist of the series, who you could make the argument that he's the Harbinger. You could make the argument that Pete is the Harbinger, Pete Stanchek, who's on the cover there in the yellow sweatshirt. But it doesn't matter. The point being that they had these incredible powers. They were incredible psionic abilities, so they could read people's minds, get people to do things that they wanted to do and what have you. But they were hidden. And it was about kind of the secret war of it all. And Pete, as he's going around and he's recruiting other people that have abilities to save them, to prevent them from being recruited by the Harbinger Foundation that Toyo was, the big corporation that Toyo was running. And he would try to activate their abilities, even to the point of killing them in trying to activate them. So Pete was kind of a renegade or a rebel, if you will. And so it's about that secret struggle between the two, and there's a lot of questions of morality and right or wrong and that sort of thing. And it was so prescient in a lot of ways with some of the things that questions we're still trying to answer now about, what we should be doing in terms of society and just like all those really complicated questions where there are no easy answers. And I've had long, deep conversations, some of them on the podcast with Joshua Dysart about what it means to be a hero. And, if you have to kill 10,000 people in order to create a perfect society, is it worth it? Well, maybe for everybody else, but it sure isn't worth it for those 10,000 people that, died. And it really is that sort of philosophical questions that are raised by this book. So I haven't read it in quite a while, but it's been on my list for a long time of when people ask me, an independent comic, this is one of the ones that I always recommend. And all those artists are fantastic. The artwork's great. The production values when Valiant came back were high as well. So it's a book I definitely recommend.
Yeah, this is a book that I have heard quite a bit about. I have not read it yet, but I need to add it back to my list. I need to check this one out.
Yeah, and it goes on, once Harbinger ends, then it goes into Imperium, then it goes into Life and Death of Toyo Harada. So it's really, you get a complete story. It was one of the few things, like a lot of times when you look at what happened with Valiant when Dinesh and a lot of the guys that originally brought it back left, a lot of the plot lines weren't finished. Harbinger was one. The story of Toyo and the story of Pete was one that did come to a satisfying conclusion.
Oh, good.
All right, what do you have up next, Lance?
So I am assuming we're going to have many similar ones near the end, but I'm going to say one that maybe you don't have. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think it's iconic. It's one of the greatest indies of all time, but everyone's going to be thinking Mirage. But my recommendation is actually going to be the IDW run that relaunched the series in 2011. So there's the original.
Yep.
And you absolutely should read it. But I think for an even wider fan base, I think IDW is an easier jumping on point. So in 2011, Kevin Eastman came back to co-write the beginning of the IDW run, and he stuck around for quite a long period of time. Tom Waltz was the other writer on it, and then the writer on the first 12 issues was Dan Duncan, and then it just, there's been so many different artists on it since then. But IDW's run is one of the easiest reads ever. You can just sit down and consume volume after volume of the series. But I think the thing that it does so well is it doesn't just jump on from what you already know of the Turtles. It obviously keeps that in mind of like, here's the core essentials of what it means to be TMNT, right? But it also incorporates a whole other element that changes the way you think about their story. And if you don't want to know that element, skip forward a few minutes because I need to talk about it so people know like what they should be checking out. And that is that within the IDW run, you learn that the Turtles and Splinter are actually reincarnated versions of father and sons, of biological father and sons. And they were killed by Shredder. And in like that the time period in which because it's like feudal Japan. And so they are reincarnated and they are continuing to live out their lives, but now obviously as turtles through reincarnation. But the element does not it's so good about not drawing away from what you already know about the turtles. It's just an enhancement of it. I think it makes a deeper connection between all of them as well as Splinter. It dives a lot more into like what the heck is going on with Shredder that we're still kicking around right now. And you get a really cool redesigns. I think the best Slash design ever is in the IDW 2011 series because he is monstrous. But you can just continuously read this book. I think there's like 316 issues right now. Jason Aaron and Juan Ferreira are just finishing up their arc right now, which is basically considered a second volume of the IDW run because it does very much change up the narrative, but you should still check that out. But yeah, I would start with issue 1 of the 2011 IDW series. It's beautiful. It's so good.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't seem to find a quick cover, but yeah, I mean, I've heard so many good things. This is another whole. I've never read a single Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic except for the first issue of The Last Ronin. And yeah, I mean, obviously, when this was coming out, and like even the Archie stuff, I've never had a chance to read, but I've only heard good things. But
yes,
yeah.
This is a super quick story. So this is the first time the original Mirage series was ever collected, and I found it at a used bookstore for like, I don't know, $30. Wow. This thing goes for a lot more than that, and I got to meet Kevin Eastman. The first time I met Kevin Eastman, I had him do a little sign and sketch in there. Nice. So,
Yeah, another one that's a whole, and yeah, I've heard great things about Jason Aaron's run on the series as well. So one of these days, I need to be able to have somebody pay me to just talk about comics instead of having a day job. And then
right, I agree. I will say, because there is so much TMNT, keep an eye out on the Humble Bundle, because IDW's TMNT has popped up on that multiple times. I actually bought it as well. I think I paid like $35 for hundreds of issues. So it pops up every once in a while.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so there's a lot of people that would have a lot of this man's work on the countdown, or shout it out if we're talking about best indie comics of all time. Well, I had to have something by him, and this is 100% another one of those runs that I would recommend to people because I think it's amazing. But it may not be the one that most people would put on the list, but that's because I haven't read the one that most people would put on the list, because I have this thing where if something gets too popular, I'm a little bit contrarian and I don't want to check it out. So when I show what this is, you'll know, who the writer is, and you'll know exactly what other book that I'm talking about, which I have a feeling you've probably read. But I'm going to shout out Ex Machina, from Brian K. Vaughan. He's done, a ton of other stuff like, Paper Girls and Runaways over at Marvel, and obviously Saga is the book that I'm referring to that everybody shouts out from the rooftops. It's so good, it's so good. I've never read it. I have no plans to read it.
No, you need to read it.
But this book, Ex Machina, you want to talk about being prescient. It's amazing. Tony Harris, and this doesn't happen anymore either. I think this is 35 issues or so, or 42 issues or something like that. Plus there's a couple of limited series specials. And Tony Harris does the art in all of them. And it's such a tight narrative. This book is so good. It's basically about a guy who is Ex Machina. He's the machine, but he's also the mayor of New York. And, it leans into those ideas of, should he be taking the, law into his own hands or whatever? But the thing is, it comes from a place of him just wanting to help. Like, he loves the city of New York. He wants to help. He wants to help both as his alter ego and as the mayor. He's just such a good guy. He's easy to root for. And there's other twists and turns, and different characters have different motivations, and things can get kind of out of whack at times with it. And you're like, oh no, if sometimes I don't care for the books where somebody's holding a secret and it leads to drama or whatever. Like, it bothers me. I'm like, man, if everybody was just upfront with everybody else, then we wouldn't have all these problems. But in this book, it works. Like, Brian K. Vaughan makes it work. And this book, I think, again, I haven't read all of his stuff, but this book really shows how talented of a writer he is, and all the praise and critical acclaim that he gets is very, very much deserving. So, have you read? I mean, it sounds like you've read Saga. Have you read Ex Machina?
I have not read Ex Machina. It's another one that's been on the list because Brian K. Vaughan is extremely talented. His ability to write an engaging story is truly stunning.
Yeah, it's let me see. It goes for 50 issues, actually. 50 issues total, and then there's a couple of other miniseries that tie in. So
yeah, it always, like, the collected editions always show up at my used bookstore. So I will definitely be adding this one to my pull because, man, go to used bookstores, everybody. They're great. You can find some cool stuff out there.
100%.
Yeah, I'm just going to go straight into it then. Saga. Saga is one of the greatest comics of all time. I was also contrarian to this book for a very long time. One of my good buddies, Chris Hacker from the Oblivion Bar podcast, he told me for so long to read this comic. And because everyone just praised it so much, I was like, well, I don't want to read it. Because I'm also that fear of, like, building it up too much in my head. Like, if I read this and I don't like it, then, like, what was the point of it? Or I let myself down? No, this book holds up unbelievably well to all of the hype. So it's written by Brian K. Vaughan and illustrated by the unbelievably talented Fiona Staples. This book is gorgeous. One of the most well illustrated books out there. The story is about Alana and Marco, who are from rival alien factions. So there's a lot of derogatory terms for, like, people with wings and then people with horns. But the two of them fall in love and they have a child named Hazel. And Hazel is really the character that the story is about. Hazel is amazing. But this book is, one, extremely adult. Do not let children near this one at all. The opening sequence is like childbirth. There's a lot to this book. But there's a whole alien race that have, like, TVs for heads. There's so much going on, but it is really, really funny, but also incredibly deep and heartbreaking. If you want to talk about cliffhangers, there's many of them throughout these issues. And it went for 54 issues, and then it went on a hiatus for a few years, and now it is back. There is a compendium 1 for it that has all 54 of those issues, and wow, does that one leave you on a cliffhanger. But strongly suggest picking up that compendium. Jace, I as a contrarian at times myself, I'm telling you, you need to read Saga. Like,
it's almost like it doesn't.
Good.
It's even though when it came back, like, so I'm looking at it. Yeah, so it came back in 2022. So 3 years ago it came back, but we've only had um, like 11 issues in 3 years.
Yeah, it
So
is.
yeah, it is still a little bit of an irregular schedule, as it were.
Yeah, but
So yeah,
get that
like
first compendium.
yeah.
Oh man, it's so good. It's brutal, but it's so good.
I mean, I do enjoy Brian K. Vaughan, so yeah, there is a part of me that does want to read it, but yeah, the other part of me, again, I almost feel like so many of people that I consider friends nominated for Eisners losing to Saga year after year after year after year. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
This book has 12 Eisners.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I definitely should read it. It's probably up there with Sandman. That's another one that I've never read that I probably should.
I've started Sandman multiple times, and I like get a few issues in, and then something else shiny takes my
Yeah,
attention away from it.
yeah, yeah. And now with recent allegations, it's like even more problematic.
Exactly.
I wanted to throw this cover. I did find so here. There's the cover to the ongoing that started in 2011 from IDW for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you're curious, you can go and check that out. All right, what's left on my list here? Okay, let's talk about this one. This person actually has, if I'm talking about my entire list, my 10 and then the 8 honorable mentions, this person actually shows up more than anybody else with three series. But I'll mention this one because it's the one that's currently coming out, and it's had a lot of critical acclaim, and rightly so. Because it's just amazing. And again, it's another one of those comics that make you think and sort of, what do you do with power? What do you, just because you have powers and abilities, does that, does might make right? Should you be the one that's deciding the fate of humanity or what have you? So it's power fantasy from Kieran Gillen, art by Casper Wingard for the most part. And this story postulates, like, instead of different countries being superpowers, and pretty much, when I grew up during the Cold War or what have you, the 80s and 90s, it was power meant you had the bomb, you had nuclear weapons, you had nuclear missiles, ICBMs that you could drop on somebody else, and so it was like mutually assured destruction, right? Nobody ever started a nuclear war because it's nobody wins a nuclear war. Everybody loses, right? Because everybody dies, radiation, destroy the earth, what have you. So, but what this story postulates is, instead of there being atomic bombs, nuclear bombs, there are just people that are considered atomics, but they're not necessarily aligned with any countries. But they all, all 7 or 8 of them, or however many it is, 9 maybe, they all sort of have the ability to kill thousands and thousands, if not millions of people all at once. And Kieran Gillen, the other thing that's great about this is he does essays in the back of each issue where he talks about what the particular issue that essay is about, but also overall the story. And his idea, he got the idea for the series when he was writing X-Men, a bunch of stuff over at Marvel in the X-Men universe, and then there was the Judgment Day event that he ran and wrote a bunch of stuff for. And he was thinking, as he's writing these books, like, if you really had beings that had this level of power, if you really have like a Magneto against a Professor X, and they really are these Omega level beings that have all this power, and they actually fought, it would destroy the Earth. Like, people would die, natural disasters, destroying the environment or whatever, because they're so powerful. And so that led him to this idea of, what if you really did have these people that, if they really unleashed their powers and abilities, just a regular average people would just die. Cities would be destroyed. I mean, not to get too spoilery here, but there's an event that happens, and there's a timeline, and he has it all laid out in the back, extra back matter and what have you. But there's an event that happens where literally all of Europe is like wiped off the face of the earth and what have you. So it's a book that makes you think. You see that these beings, just because they happen to be born a certain way, or maybe one of them's an angel or whatever, for whatever reason they won the lottery and they have these abilities, it doesn't mean it's a good thing. Some of them are incredibly depressed and unhappy, and it doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes, or that they have some innate ability to know right from wrong, or what the best choice is in any particular situation. The world is not black and white. It's more gray than anything else, and this is a book that kind of illustrates that. And it is currently coming out. The first print is pretty pricey because it's everybody wanted it. And what I love is, this isn't a book that blew up because there was going to be a movie or so-and-so got cast as it, in TV show or whatever. It just blew up because of word of mouth and because it was so good and so many people wanted to read it. But that being said, you can get subsequent printings, you can get the collected editions and what have you. I think it's right around issue 12 right now. It just came out. So it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. And the Caspar Wingard art is charming in a way because it's not traditional superhero art where you get all the detail and it gets gritty or whatever. It's colored in such a way where it's a little more pastel and everything's a little more simple, which kind of juxtaposes against how powerful these beings are. So I think it's probably one of the best books that's coming out now, like independent or otherwise. So have you been reading this, Lance?
Oh, yeah. I love power fantasy. It confuses me to no end because it jumps around timeline-wise.
Yeah.
You're meant to be confused with certain characters as well. Some of them are wearing masks in the series, and so you're kind of confused on who is who. Because if you are watching the video for this character, I believe his name's Etienne, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's essentially like Professor X. He can snuff out somebody just by like thinking about who they are. Boom, can turn the lights out. They're done. This character is terrifying, but he's turned off his emotions and makes decisions based off what is best for humanity. And that's what all of these characters, they're kind of fighting against one another, but also working together. They hate each other, but they know they need one another. There's an angel character, there's a devil character, and then there's other just super powered beings. It is one of the most well-written / confusing books I have ever read in my entire life. But I think Kieran Gillen has been one of my favorite writers for years now. Are the other two books that Kieran's that you didn't put on here Die and Once and Future?
Die is one. Where do I have that? I actually have that in my top 10. Yeah. The other one is not Once and that one's in my honorable mentions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Kieran Gillen is just an absolute talent. Anytime they start writing a series, I'm there. I'm so excited because they just announced Die is coming back. Die Reloaded is coming out later this year. Cannot wait for that because that series is so good.
Yeah, is that on your list? Are you going to that next?
Die was my honorable mention.
All right, let's talk about Die right now then. Because it is on my list, and yeah, part of the reason I put it on here is because it is coming back. Stephanie Hans is the artist, and this is fantastic. If you love Dungeons and Dragons or what have you, the whole idea is this group that they're sort of social outcasts in a way. They're young kids, junior high school age, and they have this Dungeons and Dragons type group that they play. But one of them actually comes up with a game, and they all get their own special die, and they're all various different kinds of characters. Oh, one's a barbarian, one's a wizard, that sort of thing. But what happens when they play this game? They all disappear. They all get transported to this other magical realm of where they live, and it goes or where they're playing this game. And one of them kind of, I don't want to say turns evil because it's more complicated than that, but they all just kind of want to get home, and in order to do that, they sort of have to band together against the one person that's sort of ruling this land and running this game or what have you. But again, it gets way more complicated than that, and it's a fantastic series. I remember reading. I'm not a Dungeons and Dragons guy, and there was like rules for a role-playing game. There was a ton of back matter in this as well. The art from Stephanie Hans was gorgeous. And even though I wasn't really into it, I had other friends that were reading that loved it. I didn't need that. That's my whole point. You don't need to be a gamer in that way, RPG, to enjoy this. And I just remember like reading the first issue and immediately being blown away by it, reaching out to all my friends. You gotta pick this up. You gotta read it. It's absolutely amazing. And it never let up. Like I talk so many times about how comics, you need issues that are up and then they come down so you have the contrast. This might be the one comic that kind of belies that. It stays like pedal to the metal the whole time, but the stakes are so high and it's so grounded in great characterization from Kieran Gillen that it just works. And yeah, with the fact that it's coming back, because there were some plot threads or what have you, he did leave it open a little bit to come back, and now we are, and I'm super excited for it. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Lance, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, I love Die. I have 3 copies of the first print of this book, and one of them's in a 9.8. I am a newer player of Dungeons and Dragons. I want to say I've been playing maybe for like 7 years now with a friend group. But this story, like you mentioned, you do not need to play Dungeons and Dragons to be pulled into this world. A lot of times this book is recommended as, or is described as being like Goth Jumanji. It is friends that are sucked into this world and they're trying to get back out. The storyline basically starts with they disappear for 2 years. They come back to the real world and then are unable to talk about where they were. And then they live out their lives. They are into their adulthood, and then they're sucked back into this world. And it's about them trying to get back home to their families, to their loved ones. And so there is this feeling of desperation constantly that they're trying to go back. But at the same time, the amount of time they had spent in this world, they developed relationships there. They had other individuals that were in this world that they had interacted with, and there are repercussions for those actions. Each one of them, based on the type of die they were given, is a different class within the storyline. And I won't get into the nitty-gritty details of that, but each one of them is individualistically unique, not just because of their character, but what they do in the narrative of the story based on their abilities that they have. And also, Stephanie Hans's painterly art style is gorgeous. This book is beautiful. I was one of the people, I'll just open this book and just stare at the art in this book. I also backed it when they did the Kickstarter for the TTRPG for the game, because Kieran and Stephanie literally created a whole new gaming system that you can play die in. Just to be like super nerdy for one moment, one of the characters is an emotion knight, but you can, if you played the game, you could decide what type of emotion you want to have. So you can be like an anger knight, a grief knight, a sorrow knight. And if you are able to feel more of that emotion, you get stronger. And it really plays into that within this storyline. And reading these issues, you get to know the emotion knight within here. He's one of the main characters, and how you choose what emotion, or no, I'm not going to say anything else about it. It's a great part of the story. But no, I love Die. It was my honorable mention on here. Kieran Gillen is such a good writer.
Yeah, you mentioned Once and Future. I've never read that. You know,
Also
that's
good.
a Boom series from Kieran Gillen. Dan Mora, I think, was the original. Yeah, was the first artist on it.
He illustrates the whole thing. Dan Mora does the whole thing.
Yeah, and yeah, it's Arthurian legend, which I love King Arthur, so it's definitely another one that's on my list. I just, you can't read everything, but we'll get to it one day. But yeah, I do have one other Kieran Gillen that I'll mention when I get to honorable mentions. But have you ever interviewed him?
One of my co-hosts has interviewed him.
So I've had opportunities to interview him, and I've always, I won't say turned him down, but I've never like pursued them as much as I could, because I've interacted with it, and I've had conversations with him a couple times, but it's always been like on the floor of San Diego Comic-Con where it's kind of loud or whatever. And he has such a thick accent. I have such a hard time hearing him. I'm always worried I'll have it, I worry I'll sit down for an interview and I won't be able to understand him and it'll end up being a terrible interview. But I would love to, like, he's so fascinating to me. I need to be able to interview him where he has subtitles so I make sure I understand, I understand what he's saying. Yeah. But anyway, what do you have up next?
Let's see. I will say everyone read Once and Future, though, as well. If you like Arthurian mythology, it is such a cool look at it because it's modern, and no, it's a whole other thing I got to get into. Read Once and Future. Dan Mora illustrated it. If you like Dan Mora's work, you'll love that book too. Let's keep it dark fantasy series themed. I'm going to go Monstrous by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takada. This series dropped in 2015. Within this storyline, so there's Micah Halfwolf. So she is a teenage girl who shares a mysterious psychic link with a powerful monster, which is essentially like a demon. There's a world that there's a war between Arcanics, who are these like magical creatures that can sometimes look like humans, and then there's the Human Federation led by the Kumea. They're an order of sorceresses who consume Arcanics to fuel their power. So it's just a super messed up faction world, but Sana Takada's art, again, I don't want to say a painterly style. It is a book unlike I have ever seen visually before. I believe it's multimedia that they use for it. because this book has won multiple Eisners before. In 2018, it won like best continuing series, best publication for teens. This book is not just for teens, though. I feel like they gave it that award just because they wanted to give it more awards. Marjorie Liu in 2018 won for best writer for it. And then Sana Takeda for it won in 2018, 2022, 2023, and 2024 for best painter multimedia artist, as well as Sana also winning best cover artist in 2018. A gorgeous book, really interesting narrative story. If you just like fantasy in general, especially dark fantasy, this book is right up your alley. And there's like cats and stuff. So if you like cats too, there's cats in the storyline. It's very random, but it's a great series.
Yeah, that's another one that I don't know, not necessarily contrarian, because I feel like it's not necessarily something that would interest me, but then at the same time I've had other people tell me, well, if you like Die, you'll like Monstrous.
You will.
It is that dark fantasy thing. So yeah, it's one that hasn't ever really been on my radar. Like, it's not one that's on my list where it's like I need to read that someday. I haven't planned on reading it, but I don't know, maybe based on your recommendation I may have to change that. And I wanted to throw this up, everybody, just so you can see Once in Future. Like, this is such a huge hole. Like, again, I'm a huge fan of the Arthurian myths, and I love Dan Mora art, and I love Kieran Gillen. Like, the fact that I never picked this up. And this was one where, like, I heard great things about it, but I was a little late for some reason. I don't know why I didn't hear about it, because it was not like I wasn't covering comics at that time. But by the time I kind of heard about it, and it was one of those things where it had already kind of hit and been like super popular, and it was like, I'm not going to be able to get a first print of issue number 1. I kind of don't want to read it, because then I'll just go out and spend whatever I need to get a first print of issue number 1, which seems like a silly reason not to read something.
It's not a lot.
No, and yeah, and it's come down now, but this was like when it was red hot when it first dropped. So yeah, it's another one I should probably go back and. All right.
I have an issue 1 signed by Gillen and Mora.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, we're actually up to issue or up to series number 10 now. Although I still have, or not though, because you called out.
I have 2 left.
Yeah, because you called out Invincible. That's right. So I can pull one from down here. Okay, I'm gonna pull one again. Partly why I'm shouting this out is because I don't think a lot of people are reading it, and the other thing is that it's a series that's very recent. So, and I don't think the issues are expensive at all. So you'd be able to go pick it up if you're so inclined. And it's such a cool name and such a great series. We've been covering it as the issues have been coming out on our Indie Spotlight. And it's called Tin Can Society. And it's from Peter Warren, and Rick Remender's credited as a writer too. I think Peter is, writing it, scripting it for sure, and he might have plotted it out with Rick when he first started. Francisco Mobili is the artist, and it is under Rick Remender's Giant Generator imprint at Image Comics. But the whole idea of why it's called Tin Can Society is you had this group of kids that hung out. There was a kid who was very gifted, but he physically was frail. He had to wear braces on his legs and use crutches to get around and what have you. But he was brilliant. He transfers to a new school like junior high. He makes friends, and they're all, they're not the popular kids or whatever. And they have these various treasures and what have you, and they keep them in a tin can that they bury under a tree where they like to go and hang out, and they dig the can up and they do whatever. And then later, much later in life, that kid, grows up to be like this tech billionaire guy who's created a bunch of inventions, and he's and he even creates a suit of armor, similar to like Tony Stark, and he uses it to fight crime and help people and what have you. And various dramatic things happen along the way. But the series starts off with he's apparently been killed, and his, in the ensuing years, the friends have some of them have drifted apart. One of them works for him as his head of security, and some of them still know each other and spend time together. But the group as a whole has kind of fallen apart, and they take it upon themselves. They want to solve his murder and figure out what's going on. And I'm giving you like the most simplistic, because there are crazy twists and turns. Because the whole idea was this guy was killed so that somebody could use his suit of armor, except his armor is supposed to only be used by him because it's it's like linked to his DNA and how to, whoever stole it get around that and whatever. And it gets wild and crazy. And so just in terms of drama and narrative and pacing and the mobility, art is really fantastic. I love this book. It's so cool. And it also brings up oftentimes like ideas of, I'm talking about this kid, this like Tony Stark like genius or whatever. He's not without his faults, and he's not without his terrible things that he's done, and you find that out throughout the series. Like all these characters are very real because they're all flawed. You can think about the reason that the Marvel Comics age hit when it hit, when Spider-Man came out and Fantastic Four and Hulk, and they all had their flaws, right? The Fantastic Four was family drama. Peter Parker was the guilt and being broke all the time. The Hulk didn't have control and he would turn into a monster or what have you. And that's the reason that it spoke to people, because it was much more realistic than what was happening over in DC Comics. That was decades ago now, right? 1960s, that stuff came out. We sort of need something even more complicated. It's not enough just to give them these sort of generic flaws, as it were. And that's what this kind of book does from Peter Warren. So I definitely recommend checking it out. I want to say there's 8 issues. I'll double check on that, because I think the last issue comes out next month or maybe in November. So okay. It's definitely coming down to its conclusion. So 9 issues, and the final issue is out. Issue 9 comes out next month. Issue 8 is out this week, actually. And then, that's why I was thinking 2 issues. So issue 8 is out September 3rd, and then issue 9 comes out October 22nd. And then the trade's going to be out in January. Nice. Yeah, great book.
Yeah, I need to check my inbox from Image, because this is another one of those books that I planned on reading, and then I feel like I just kind of like lost track of it.
It's good,
but
it's good.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it, so I definitely need to check my inbox and see if I still have it in there. I'm sure I do. Image is good about keeping that stuff around. I think I'll go with Scott Pilgrim for the next one from my list. So most people will know like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So the movie that was directed by Edgar Wright. So it is based off of Scott Pilgrim, the first book being Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life. This came out in 2004, written and illustrated by Brian Lee O'Malley, who is a writer, artist, lover of music that created the story about Scott, who, if you've seen the movie, you will also know that Scott is kind of like a slacker. He is not the greatest with interpersonal relationships, and this storyline is about, you think it's just him trying to defeat the 7 evil exes of the main of his love interest. So I think it's Fiona. So trying to win her heart by defeating the 7 evil exes, and it is this ridiculous premise, and there's just like fight scenes happening out of nowhere, and it's just seen as commonplace. It was originally done in black and white, and there are multiple jokes about Fiona's hair changing.
Ramona
within the story.
I think.
Ramona. There we go.
Ramona Flowers. Yeah.
That hurts that I did not remember her name properly, because I've seen this movie so many times and read the book multiple times. But yeah, so Ramona is constantly changing her hair color in the storyline, but in the black and white version, there's these jokes about it changing, but it looks exactly the same because it's in black and white.
That's awesome.
Which plays into the whole point of like, does changing your hair color really matter? But it really bothers Scott, because it's like, she's impulsive. She's going to keep changing her mind about me, because he's really neurotic like that. But the story really is about Scott having like self-actualization, understanding that he has hurt others in previous relationships and trying to become a better person. But it's done in this ridiculous way where he's like fighting people that can punch holes in the moon. Like, it is so wacky and out there, but an amazing series to read. And also, if you have not watched the movie, do yourself a favor and watch that movie. Best transitions in any movie ever.
Yeah, I've heard great things. I mean, that's Chris Evans before, right? He plays Scott. Yeah, before Captain America, yeah. Yes,
so the movie cast is stacked because it has Chris Evans, Brie Larson, Audrey Plaza, Anna Kendrick. It has, what's his name? Kieran, oh, what's his name? Why can't I think of his name right now? Kevin McAllister, his brother.
Oh, Kieran Culkin.
Kieran Culkin. Wow, I'm not good with names right now. It's late. But yeah, Kieran Culkin doing the show that blew up his career. And
yeah, Succession, right?
Yeah, Succession. Such a great show. Extremely talented. But yeah, Brandon Routh is in the movie too. There's so many famous people in that movie. They could not make it for the budget that they had at the time back then because all of them are like A-list actors.
All right. Well, I got to mention this. I mean, again, I have a bunch of honorable mentions, but, talking about top 10, like if I had to pick one book to recommend to somebody and say, okay, like best independent comic in the last, 10 years, let's say, this is the book that I would say. I love this book. It's absolutely fantastic. The creators are amazing. It's No One. From Kyle Higgins, Brian Buccellato as writers, Geraldo Borges is the artist. He's amazing. The art's fantastic as well. This is in that same massive verse with Radiant Black and Rogue Sun and Deadlock and all that, but it's much more grounded because it is basically a crime comic, crime noir. But the thing that's so fascinating and interesting about what Kyle and his co-creators did with this was how multimedia it is. Like they released, coinciding with each particular issue of the series, they released a podcast with a fantastic cast of, Rachel Lee Cook and Patton Oswalt and Todd Stashwick and a bunch of other guys, well-known voice actors. And you would read issue 1 and then you would listen to the podcast for issue 1 and it would flesh out the story more and give you, little events, and they would be commenting on the events that you just read in the issue. And you didn't have to read it in order to get the whole story. You could not listen to the podcast and then go read issue 2 and it would tell you that everything you needed to know. But it was a way to reach a wider audience, and it was more immersive, and it made for a more enriched experience while reading No One. And the whole idea of this, again, being sort of topical as well, was you had this he called himself a hacktivist, that term, like a computer hacker that's an activist, so a hacktivist. And his name was No One, and he had, his whole call sign is "No one is above the law, and I am no one." And he would call out people in positions of power, whether it be a state senator or a pharmaceutical CEO or a real estate mogul or whatever. And he'd be like, these people have made all this money and amassed all this power on the backs of others. They're hiding these secrets and they need to come forward and confess their sins, or I'm going to release the, digital evidence that I have against them. No one is above the law. I am no one. So he wants these people to be held accountable. But what he doesn't count on is there's somebody else who decides to take matters into their own hands and actually go out and kill these people. And there's speculation, is it No One that's going out and killing people? So then he's having to come out and say, no, I would never condone violence. That's not the right way. I don't condone murder or whatever. These people need to be brought to justice, but justice is not killing people, whatever. So it's the whole mystery of who's killing these people, who is, who's No One, who's his identity, whatever. So it's awesome. It's immersive. We're getting a feature film that's going to be like a documentary style that's coming out hopefully next year, that Kyle is involved in, and his other co-creators, Brian Buccellato, his co-writers involved in, or what have you. But I mean, my wife is not one for comics at all, but she loves like true crime and whatever, and she loves podcasts. So I got her to. She never wants to read. I got her to read like the first couple issues of this and listen to the first couple podcasts. I don't know what it says that she didn't finish. She tells me that she will get back to it eventually. Mm-hmm. Need to bug her about it because it's wow. But this was just. It's 10 issues and 10 episodes of the podcast, and it was so interesting and awesome to have the extra added stuff. I mean, there was a website that you could go and put in the password if you paid attention to No One Comics. You knew what the password was, what have you. And yeah, it was fantastic. It was brilliant what Kyle did along with his co-creators. And I remember going to San Diego Comic-Con last year in 2024, and on preview night, running into Kyle, and that was the show where they got to announce that they had a film deal. And he showed me the trailer. Like, he's like, don't tell anybody. We'll be talking about it. I think it was like, that was on Wednesday, and I think I interviewed him like Thursday or Friday in the press room where they made the official announcement. But I got to see the trailer, early when I was so excited for him, and I can't wait to check out the film. And yeah, if I had to give one book to somebody that like yeah, I'm into crime shows or crime comics or whatever, or I'm really into podcasts and what have you. This would be the book that I would give them. I think this is a book that could turn people into comic book readers because it's so fantastic. And it's an interesting the way that they wrapped it up. And because I talked to Brian and Kyle about this, this is not where you get all the answers and everything is tied up in a nice, neat bow. Even some of the answers you get at the end, you're like scratching your head going, well, that doesn't really make sense. Could that really be true? And I talked to two co-creators about it, and they're like, well, that's true to life, right? Like life, you don't get the answers. Everything doesn't get wrapped up in a nice, neat bow. Plus, this story could continue. We'll find out, right. Finally it comes out. Because the movie is not rehashing. It's not just a retelling of these first 10 issues. It's going to be its own thing. So, this is absolutely bar none my favorite independent comic of the last 10 years, without question. So.
Nice. Yeah. While you were talking about that, I had to find this in my drawer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Kyle gave that to me at, I think, the same Comic-Con where they announced the No One film. I feel really bad because I haven't put it in my computer yet, so I'm not 100% sure what's on it. So I need to do that soon. I think every single time I think of it, because my computer does not have a lot of USB ports. It's a lot of USB-C. And so I don't have too many USB-C to USB converters, but I still need to check out what's on there. But yeah, No One is really engaging. I have not finished the series yet. Maybe all the issues are on that USB and I can read them all. Who knows? Or it might even be like just the video of the trailer for it too. I need to check it out. But yeah, No One is, I really enjoyed what I have read so far of No One. So my 10th book that's on my list is kind of a no-brainer. I already brought up Invincible, and it is not the only Robert Kirkman book I'm going to talk about, and that's The Walking Dead. Created by Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore, with artist Charlie Adlard taking over art duties from issue 7 onward. Series came out in 2003, which I believe was also the same year that Invincible started. So the fact that, it is. So Robert Kirkman writing Invincible and Walking Dead simultaneously is just unbelievable. The quality of both of those series is just next level. So I don't really feel like I need to sell this one too hard. It was a global phenomenon with the series, the show. I will say the comic is so much better than the show, though. I devour the comic. I had to stop watching the show I think at like season 7. It just went away from the comic so much, and I was like, I understand why they did that. They wanted to keep people on their toes, but the comic just is so fast paced. You get so much out of each and every issue. No one is safe, and it is just a really terrifying story of what civilization can devolve into, put into the circumstances like this, where there's this infection that is spreading and the dead are among us and they're walking around and can eat you at any point in time. And a whole bunch of people that are looking out for themselves and not really caring about others. But then you also find groups of people that are caring, and it brings you hope within the story. And then it usually rips that away real quick because there's some hope in the series, but it tends to disappear every once in a while. But yeah, Walking Dead, it's a staple in the indie scene. If you have not read The Walking Dead, do yourself a favor, read The Walking Dead. If you've only watched the show, read this comic. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I guess one of the things about The Walking Dead for me, I would say it's deliberately paced. And so, I think I jumped on like around issue 60-ish, but I would save them up until I had like 4 or 5 issues and then read them all at once to get a big chunk of the story. You don't have to worry about that, everybody, if you're coming to it now, because you can read it as fast or as slow as you want. Plus, Robert Kirkman is, much like Invincible, he's reprinted this like 7 different ways from Sunday, so you pick it up in whichever way you want. Soft cover, hardcover, omnibus, whatever. But also
black and white color now.
Yeah, Walking Dead Deluxe is currently coming out right now, where you can see it in color for the first time ever if you want. So, definitely worthy of being on the list. So what's interesting is, again, I didn't know what Lance was going to pick ahead of time. He didn't know what I was going to pick. I did not have Walking Dead or Saga or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on my list, but I did download those covers because I thought maybe they might be on your list. So I had, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you specifically called out the 2011. I also downloaded Hellboy cover because I thought maybe that might be on your list. That's the only one that I downloaded that wasn't, that you didn't shout out. So.
Yeah, I contemplated Hellboy, but I don't feel like I've read enough Hellboy to add it to my list. If we're talking my co-host of the show, 100% Hellboy would have probably been his number one. And I know plenty of people that love that series. I just haven't read enough of it. I have the first like little mini Omni on my shelf that I need to keep reading.
All right. Well, I'm gonna put this graphic back up. Here's another one that I downloaded that I thought might be on your list. So yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. I'm not a hugest fan of it.
My feelings aren't mixed. That book is an absolute soul-sucking vampire. I read the first few and it just made me feel gross. I think the show is one of the most well done comic book adaptation of media, because I feel like it takes the concept of what The Boys is and elevates it even more. This comic was really like shock value for shock value's sake, and I have no problem if you like this series. I'm glad you do. Like, I'm happy when anyone enjoys any media, especially comics. Read comics, buy comics, keep the medium alive. But for me, I read the first few issues and then I sped read the rest just so I could get through the entire thing. But I was not a details person. I was like, let me just get the broad strokes of this, because it just made me feel bad after reading it. And I don't want that feeling.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I read the first trade, the first 6 came out from Wildstorm DC, and then DC was like, this is not for us, and then it went over to Dynamite. I read the first trade, and I felt the same way you did. I was like, that's so gross, whatever. This is not what I want. I came back to it years later and read it and enjoyed it, but I didn't like the show. Like, I liked the show for the entire first season and halfway through the last episode, and then some of the changes they made just didn't work for me, and I never went back to it. So. Anyway, I thought that might be on a lot of people's list. I'm going to click through real quick because there's a couple of other ones in my honorable mentions here that I want to mention. One of them there, Rising Stars from J. Michael Straczynski, Ken Ha on art, is really interesting. This 113 people all get superpowers in the same small town at the same time when a comet flies over, and this is asking questions similar to what Power Fantasy does. About what it means to have powers, and might doesn't make right, and that sort of thing. So almost Power Fantasy before Power Fantasy, but not on quite such an epic scale of Power Fantasy. Dust to Dust is currently coming out right now. J.G. Jones, Phil Brom, most gorgeous book on stands right now, without question. And it's basically a murder mystery that's set in the Dust Bowl in Arkansas in the Great Depression, or not Arkansas, but Oklahoma in the Great Depression. So check that out if you're so inclined. I got to meet J.G. Jones. Has been on my show a couple times. I got to meet him for the first time at San Diego Comic-Con in person this year, and he had all the cover art. This is all painted by hand by him, and he showed it to me. And I was just thinking as I was putting these graphics together, I was like, I know it's not in my budget, but I should have asked him if he would consider selling that and being like, can I make payments for the next 50 years to this graphic doesn't even come close to doing justice once you see, especially in here, the textures in here. It's amazing. It's amazing. Lazarus, another one, Greg Rucka, Michael Lark, that's won Eisner's and is worth your time. I won't say more than that, other than it's in the future where families as opposed to countries kind of rule the world. First words, I mentioned, we both mentioned 8 Billion Genies, Charles Soule, super creative guy, Lucky Devils. Not only is this an amazing series, but Charles, a lot of people don't realize, was a musician growing up. He did a soundtrack for this where he played every instrument except the drums, and he sings on it. And that album is awesome. I listen to it all the time. And then what else? Oh, Think Tank from Matt Hawkins over at Top Cow is a really great, fun story about a guy who's a super genius, whose genius is being exploited by the U.S. government to work for DARPA, the Defense Research Project for America. And that series is amazing. And then this is my final Kieran Gillen. It's Uber. And this one I might have made my top 10, except similar to Clone. There's 4 issues to go, and Avatar's never brought it back. And Kieran Gillen's talked about it several times. He'd love to go back and finish it, but Avatar Press, I don't know why they don't back. But this is right on toward the end of World War II. The Nazis are just about to lose the war, and they figure out how to give people superpowers, and they win the war. So that's a much different alternate story. And I think that was it. Yeah, that's it. So
there's a lot of great comics.
Yeah,
I think
what about didn't you say you had some honorable mentions as well? Anything else?
Oh yeah.
On your list?
So Bone Parish. So from Colin Bunn and Jonas Scharf. Bone Parish is a brilliant series that is about. So it's like set in New Orleans. There are rival kind of families. So it's kind of like a mob mafia situation. But one of the families develops this drug called ash, and it's made from the remains. It's made from like bones of individuals. But when you consume this drug that has been made from the remains of the dead, it will give you visions. You basically get high, but then you will like live out an experience that they had. So if you have ash from a famous music artist, you'll be like on stage playing. But of course, whenever there's any type of drug within like a network like that, there's going to be families or people that are going to try and replicate it. And those replications don't go so well. So this is a mob mafia type story, but it's also a little bit of body horror. A lot of really interesting dynamics within the family, because not only do you have visions when you are taking ash, but you can also develop the abilities that other people have had after consuming this. It's only 12 issues. Oh, wait, 12 issues? Yeah, it's 12 issues. I am desperate for more. I've had Colin on the show and we discussed this series. It dives into some really interesting narratives, left wide open for more, but sadly, like many other great comics, has not been returned to just yet, but I am hopeful for more.
Man, look at that cover, man. That cover with the razor blade, and I'm assuming that's supposed to be ash, and
yes,
that's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Cullen. I've read a lot of his stuff. I haven't read this, but I know people that have, and they sing its praises as well.
It's a super fast read. It's so good. I did not want to put down the books as soon as I would pick them up. I didn't want to stop. I think at this point it might be collected altogether, but I know for sure that it's done in trade paperbacks where there's like 4 issues in each one. And Boom Studios always has really good deals on their stuff, so it's easily acquirable financially.
Yeah, it looks like there was a complete collection collecting all 12 that came out this year in March.
I didn't know that.
For $20. So
I'll be buying that.
Yeah, for $20 you can get the whole thing in one, and the cover of the trade is this cover.
Yeah, it's a great cover. But yeah, well, there you go. Well, I'll be buying that. I already have the issues, but I'll be buying that. That's the curse of being a collector, is even if you have the single issues, you want the collected edition.
Yeah, 100%. Anything else on your honorable mention?
I'll throw this one out there. This is going to be super indie. Space Knights. So Space Knights by Kevin Anthony Catalan. This book is only going to be available through Cosmic Lion Productions or through Kevin Anthony Catalan's online store. I think right now the book isn't even available because he is working on volume 2 of Space Knights. And this is an anthology series that is... It is super, super trippy. I have 2 original pages from Space Knights. So that is the first printing of Space Knights. And then there is a subsequent second printing, which is available to purchase when it is in stock. So just kind of be on the lookout for this one. I think Kevin Anthony Catalan is a great emerging talent within the industry. He has started to do a few covers. He just did a TMNT cover for Ninja Turtles. For IDW, his ability to tell really engaging stories while also giving you some absolute cosmic level trippy visuals. The story, I believe there's 4 different stories within this volume, but my favorite one is about Iron Hand, who's like in a gladiatorial pit, and he has armor kind of like this one. It's a little bit different. And he fights a gigantic elephant man, and it's just an all-out brawl, and it just looks amazing. But there's a lot of depth to that narrative as well, tied into the family of Iron Hand. But if you just want something that not a lot of people have read or can get their hands on, strongly recommend trying to get Space Knights. I think you can buy it just digitally online as well, that you can see. And if you want to get the physical copy later, you can. But I love this anthology series. Super excited for volume 2 because I think it's coming out next year. I think Anthony is finishing it up right now.
Interesting. I'll definitely have to give that a look. So anyway, that's going to do it, everybody. This has been a whole lot of fun. Lance, thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
And I think everybody out there in the audience, you got a real eclectic mix. We named some stuff you probably expected to be on there. Well, I'm sure we named some stuff that you weren't expecting at all. And then you probably have the stuff in the middle where you I've heard of that. I've heard it's really good. So maybe, hopefully we've spurred you to check out some of the things that you haven't read. I know there's a couple on there. Once in Future is definitely the one that you've shouted out that I got to read that soon. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget, there's a link in the show notes to the link tree for Comic Book Keepers. Encourage you to go click there, check out Lance's show. Again, a lot of really great content over there on his channel. So any last thoughts as we're closing down here, Lance?
No, just want to thank you for having me on to talk about comics. I love getting the opportunity to do this, and we've crossed paths enough over the years that it's fun that we are able to finally do something together on here.
Yeah, and Lance and I have talked about a future collaboration as well. Hopefully I'm going to guest on his show.
Yes.
The thought is I'm going to hop over there when it's time to talk about Peacemaker Season 2. Yeah, that's right, everybody. I'm going to watch a comic book TV show. I love the Superman movie. I love what James Gunn's doing. So I need to watch his Suicide Squad movie, then I need to watch Peacemaker Season 1, and then I need to jump on the bandwagon and start watching Peacemaker Season 2 like everybody else is. Already have plans to do that when I'm on the plane flying to New York Comic Con. I'll be able to binge a lot of that stuff. So looking forward to showing up on Comic Book Keepers and talking some Peacemaker in the future.
Absolutely.
So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thanks for joining us as always. Don't forget, link in the show notes to give Lance and Comic Book Keepers a follow. So that's going to do it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.